Hey everyone, welcome to another Adobe Illustrator tutorial. Today we'll discuss about one of the most used and simple yet powerful tool, which is rectangle tool. You can create many things using this simple shape alone, whether it is a flat illustration or character illustration. We use it to create background for designs, to create patterns, and for many other things. So let's understand rectangle tool in Adobe Illustrator first, and later we'll create this small illustration of Workspace using only rectangle. So open your Adobe Illustrator and go to file menu to create a new file, and from here I'm going to select 800 by 600 pixel preset. You can select any other preset if you want, and all these settings are looking just fine. Click on create to get this blank artboard. Now if you come extreme left to a screen, you can see a toolbar here, and inside this toolbar the fifth option is rectangle tool. You can click on it and it will get activated. And there is a hotkey also which you can use it from keyboard. So if you press M on your keyboard, it will get activated. Now to create a rectangle, you just have to draw on your canvas and drag around to create a rectangle. Try it again, just click on canvas and drag to create a rectangle. Now if you observe closely, while you are creating a rectangle, you can see a gray small rectangle attached to it which says W and H, which is basically width and height, dimension of the rectangle. So you can see the dimension of the rectangle while you are creating it. If you want to create a perfect square using this rectangle tool, you can click and drag and try to create a square. And if you see a magenta diagonal line inside this rectangle, that means that you are creating a perfect square. And you can refer the width and height also, which is same. Now there is another way to create a perfect square. You can click and drag, and if you press shift from your keyboard while you are creating a rectangle, it will create a perfect square. There is another way to create a rectangle. So once you have selected your rectangle tool, instead of just clicking and dragging, you can click on the canvas once and you will get this rectangle window. And now here you can put the value of width and height. So let me put the value of 200. And I'm going to off this button for now, and I'll tell you what is it later. So I can put the value of 200, and for height let's put the value of 100, and if I press OK, it will create a rectangle. So let's try it again. So if you click on your canvas once, you will get the window again, and this time let's turn this button on, and now if you put the value, so let's say 250, it will change the height also. So basically it's maintaining the proportion, and if you press OK, it will create a rectangle for you. I'm gonna go to selection tool, select all of them and delete them. Now again go back to your rectangle tool, so press M from keyboard and draw a rectangle here. Now when you create a rectangle, you see this selection box. This is called bounding box basically, and you can see these tiny squares and circles and this middle selection point. So you can use all these points and corners to scale, rotate and transform your rectangle basically. So if you want to move your rectangle, you can come to this center point and click and drag anywhere on canvas and it will move it for you. But keep in mind that you have to come to this center point to move your rectangle. If you come anywhere else and if you try to move it, it will create another rectangle. So you don't want that. Press Ctrl Z, and you can use this tiny squares to scale your rectangle. So if you come to this side square, you can scale it from the side. If you come to this corner one, you can scale it from the corner. And if you press shift, it will maintain the proportion and scale it uniformly. Similarly, if you press shift from here, it will maintain the proportion. And if you press alt, it will scale it from both sides, even for moving. So when you are moving your rectangle, if you press shift, it will lock its axis. So right now it's only moving in x-axis. When you are pressing shift, you can move it to y-axis also and diagonal also. And if you release shift, it will again go freeform. Let's zoom in a little, and if you come over here somewhere, you can see this double-sided arrow which is little rounded, and if you click and drag, it will change its rotation. And if you press shift, it will rotate it with the span of 45 degrees. So right now it's 45 degree, and you move it again, it will rotate it to 90 degree. It will go on and on. So I'm gonna go back all the way. This last option I would like to demonstrate. This tiny circle, if you click and drag all the way, it will create your corners rounded. You can release your mouse button, and if you click and drag, you can go all the way back. And if you want to make single corner rounded, you can click on it once, so it will get selected, and now you can click and drag to make the single corner rounded. Similarly, you can select this one and make it less rounded than first one. Alright, let's delete this one. Now there's one thing you should remember when you create a rectangle. Let me create another one. So when you create a second rectangle, the first one will get deselected, and you can only modify this one when you are in rectangle tool. You cannot go back and select this one. If you want to select this rectangle, you have to go to selection tool and select this one. But you will get all the options, similar options. You don't have to bother about that. But you have to keep in mind that you cannot select rectangles using rectangle tool. Even if you try it, it will create a new rectangle. So let's delete all of them. Now I would like to introduce you to another tool which you can use with the rectangle tool to create custom shape, which is direct selection tool. So let's create a rectangle first. And if you go to direct selection tool, which is the second option behind underneath this selection tool, if you select direct selection tool, you can see these 4 points. These are called anchor points. You can select any of this anchor point and move it anywhere you want, and you can create a custom shape. You can select 2 points, so if you press shift and select other point, now they both are selected, so you can move them anywhere you want. Similarly, you can select 3 points, and if you are having hard time while you are selecting them, you can always click and drag to select them. So if you press shift and drag, it will select this one also together, and you can move them. You can also use keyboard arrow keys. So if I select this one and if I use arrow key, down arrow key once, it will move it to 1 pixel. So I can move it using arrow keys. I can move it up, down, right, left, anywhere I want. And if I combine it with shift, so if I press shift and top arrow key, it will move it 10 pixel at every step. Previously, when I was using only arrow keys, it was moving it 1 pixel. But if you press shift and arrow key, it will move it to 10 pixel. So you can use this direct selection tool to create multiple shapes. I'm gonna delete this one. Now let's talk about transform again. So when you create your rectangle, you know that you can see the transformation of rectangle, and you can also click and put the value and create a rectangle. But what if you have created a rectangle and afterwards you want to change its transformation? You can always come to this transform section and put the precise value afterwards also. And if you don't find it here, right now in properties panel, if you don't find it here, you can always go to window and click on this properties. And if you just want transform panel, you can come to the transform panel, find transform panel here and click on it, and you will get only transform panel. The workspace I am using is essentials. So if you want to use the same workspace, you can come to window and workspace and essential. And even if it's not same, then you can reset essentials. So when you come to properties panel, you can see the transformation here. So X is the position of your rectangle in X axis and Y axis. We generally don't use position values from here. We move it on canvas freeform most of the time. So it's not that useful, but width and height you can always come and put the precise value. So right now we can put the value of 400 to be precise, and for height let's put the value of 200 and press enter. This button you can use it for rotation, so 30 degree, 60 degree, or you can double click on it and put manual value. So let's say 35 degree and 0 degree to go back, or maybe let's say 35 degree, and use this button to flip it. So if you click on it, it will flip it horizontally, and this one will flip it vertically. Again go back to 0, press enter, and there is another button which says more option. If you click on it, these 3 options are same, but you can see this corner radius button, and you put the value here 15 pixel, it will make your corner rounded. And you can turn this button off, and now you can change the value for single radius, so 0, and for this also 0. So now only 2 corners are rounded. And again there is appearance properties. So there are 2 attributes, main attributes of it. So fill, which is the fill color of your rectangle, so you can change it to red or any other color. Stroke color, stroke width you can increase and reduce from here. But this lesson is not about fill, stroke and appearance, so we'll not discuss too much about it. Let's go back to rectangle. I'm gonna delete this one. Now let's create a illustration of workspace. Since we have covered everything about rectangle tool, we'll use only rectangle to create the workspace. So go to your toolbar and click and draw a rectangle. We'll create the monitor first for workspace. So click and draw to create a rectangle. I'm gonna go to toolbar and click on this button which is default fill and stroke, which is white and black. Let's create the monitor. So I'm gonna change the value for width 300 and for height let's say 200. I'm trying to create a monitor which looks like iMac, so keep that in mind. This is looking fine. I think I should reduce the size a little bit. So for height maybe 180, and I'm going to create a copy of this. So if I press Alt, it will create a copy, and if I press Shift together, it will lock its axis. And let's scale it down to 20 for height, or I don't know, maybe 40, and move it here somewhere. I'm gonna zoom in a little, select both of them, and go to stroke and make cap rounded, corner rounded, and align stroke center. Now let's create the circular button here. So for that also I'm going to create a rectangle, create a small rectangle, and put the precise value of maybe 15. Try to align it in center, and you can see smart guide will help you to align it in center. If you don't see smart guides here, you can always go to view and turn smart guide on, which will help you to align your objects also. I'm going to select one of this corner and go all the way till it become a circle, and it will look like a button. Now let's make this top corners rounded. So go to more option, and for top options let's put the value of 10 maybe, and this one 10 also. Let's do the same for this one, but this time use the bottom corners 10 and 10, and they are looking fine. Let's create the stand, which is divided into two parts. So let's create the first part, create a rectangle again, change its value to 100, and for height let's say 16, or I don't know, maybe 14, and try to align it to center. And I'm gonna go use direct selection tool this time. Use direct selection tool, select this top anchor point and press shift and right arrow key to move it inside for 10 pixels, and similarly move it inside and create another rectangle, maybe 150 this time, and for height 14 will do. Again try to align it to center and make this top corners rounded again, so 10 10, and the monitor is ready. Let's create the mouse. So for mouse I'm going to create a copy of this stand bottom part. So press Alt and Shift to drag and create a copy, scale it down from both sides, and now you can put the precise value of maybe 50 or 40. 40 is looking fine, and move it here. Go to the more option and make the top corners rounded for 10 pixel. We can also create the scroll button. So for that again create a rectangle, change its size to maybe 3 and height 8, and again try to align it in center. Now let's create the coffee mug, and again rectangle, change its height to 40 and width 40 and height 60. Try to align it with the bottom line and move it here. Let's create another copy of this rectangle. So press Alt and Shift, scale it down and scale it from the side, maybe 10 pixel and 20 pixel, looking fine. Move it here. We can actually increase the width value, so let's say 12 or maybe 14 will do, and move it here and make these two corners rounded, not this much, maybe 10 pixels, so 10 10. It got rounded almost all the way. We can actually increase the height to maybe 30. Now it's looking much better. Now let's create the smoke. So again rectangle, change width to maybe 10, height 3, or let's increase the height to 5 and make all corners rounded. Keep it here somewhere. Create another copy of this, scale it 15, another copy 20, and the coffee mug is also ready. Let's zoom out a little. Actually make these bottom two corners rounded, so 10 10. Now let's create the lamp. So for lamp I'm going to create a copy of this, reduce the height to maybe 10 and increase the width to maybe 100, and try to align it till the bottom of this line. Move it here somewhere, and let's create the stand. So for that create a simple rectangle, thin one, change its value to 5 and height to 80, or width value maybe 6, and let's reduce the height to maybe 60. It's looking fine, but I think it's too wide for that, so maybe 80 for the stand, for the base, and rotate this one, so maybe minus 30 degree. It's looking fine. I'm gonna move it here. Let's move it back. So you can always right click, go to arrange and send it to back. Let's create another copy of this. So press Alt and Shift to drag, flip it and move it here. Try to join them and create a copy of this circle, and it's looking like a joint. Create another copy of this circle to create another joint, but this time I don't want all of them rounded, just 2 of them rounded all the way and 2 of them hard edge, and rotate them. Why not put the precise value of 30, sorry not 330, I'm gonna create one more copy of this and scale it up, move it here, reduce the width and make these two corners rounded all the way. Create another copy of this for the bulb and scale it up, make it rounded all the way. I mean, you can use ellipse tool to create a perfect circle, but the theme is to create using only rectangle, so that's why I'm using rectangle, and so far it seems to work fine. Now let's create the table base. So I'm going to create a copy of this, scale it, just increase the width. Now you can put the precise value of 600. Now I'm gonna come here, select one of it and go all the way. Now all of them are rounded. This is not the screen, this is the panel. So create another copy of this rectangle. So Ctrl C, or maybe you can go to edit and copy and paste, or maybe paste in front and reduce its size by 20 pixels to 280, 160 and make these bottom corners rounded 10 and 10. So right now it's looking like a screen. We can put some colors to screen, this button and the middle part of stand, this lamp base, joint, this joint, color of bulb. Go to fill and select this orange shade. I'm gonna go to mixer to make it a little more pop. Let's add red. It'll make it a little orangish and it's looking fine, I guess. We can add little more detail to it. Let's change the color of this base also, and let's add some reflection to the screen. So again, create rectangle, change its color to white and use direct selection tool. Select these two anchor point and move it to the right side many times till you are satisfied. Create a copy, move it here first, create another copy pressing Alt and Shift. Select this side anchor points and make this one little less wider. Select both of them and move it to the side, and now it's looking like a reflection. So this is it for this lesson. I hope you learned something new from it. Subscribe to my channel to see more Adobe Illustrator tutorial, and thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.